Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants hangout. We're getting interrupted on my end. We're in a school. We're getting announcements. But my name's Joe Grabowski. For those who don't know, we're all about bringing science, adventure, and conservation into classrooms through hangouts like this with adventurers, conservationists, scientists from all over the world. So I'm very excited to have Inger Vandyke joining us today. Inger, would you like to say a quick hi to the students?
Hi, everyone. Hello.
All right, let me turn some mics on so the kids can say hi. All right, there they are. We've got a great group joining us today. Let me give a little intro for Inger. So every year, Inger gets to travel around the world. So she gets to visit 12 to 16 countries and lead or co-lead different expeditions. So it could be doing stories for travel or conservation. 1 month she could be in the Kalahari. Then she could be in the Himalayas looking for snow leopards. So as a teacher, I'm pretty jealous of the travel she gets to do. She's an experienced seabird guide in the Southern Ocean, and she's worked regularly in the Arctic and Antarctica. And what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of her work in the Himalayas with snow leopards, but she's done a few other pretty cool things too. So she was the first female photographer to work professionally on Heard Island in Antarctica, and she's a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, as well as a fellow of the Explorers Club. So those are all really cool achievements. All right, it's loud over here. We got announcements going like crazy. So I think, Inger, I'm going to let you take over and share your story.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm here to talk to you about wild snow leopards. And I'll just start my presentation. Just one moment. I can start this for you. All right, so I'm here to talk to you guys about one of the rarest and most special wild cats in the entire world, and this is the unique snow leopard that lives in the world's highest mountains. Does anyone know where they are, the highest mountains in the world, and do they know which mountain is there?
All right, Mrs. Edgar, I turned your class on. You're under pressure.
Himalayas. And which mountain is there? Google it. No, don't Google it. It's Mount Everest. And believe it or not, Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world, it is in the Himalayas. And that is where these snow leopards live. So the Himalayas is in where this little blue marker is. So it sort of sits between India and China, but covers about 12 different countries and so forth. And the snow leopards live amongst all of these countries, usually at minimum altitudes of 14,000 feet. So they sometimes come lower than that, but the best place to see snow leopards is by going high. And this is the mountains in Ladakh in northern India, which is the last stronghold for snow leopards, and it's a very, very relatively safe place for them to live. It's one of the easiest places now to see a wild snow leopard. So snow leopards, I'll just give you a bit of a rundown on where they actually are and why it's so hard to see them. They actually live in 12 Himalayan countries. So India, China, Pakistan, Bhutan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and Russia. So the area that you can see basically in just south of this sort of blue area on this map, and a little bit further to the east. So, there's about 4,500 to 7,000 snow leopards left in the wild. They are one of the rarest wild cats on Earth. So we were very lucky on our trip that we went to see them, to actually have the encounters that we did with them. They're very, very special. They are specific mountain specialists. They're very insulated for the cold weather, and they spend their time in the coldest environments on Earth. So. Ladakh is a rather special part of northern India. It's connected to Tibet geographically by the mountain ranges there. It's not part of the Great Himalaya as such. It's part of the sort of foothills of the Himalaya. It's also connected to Pakistan by the Indus River and so forth. So when you go walking through the mountains there, you see lots of ancient rock carvings and pictures like these ones here, which is on one of the snow leopard trails we went to. I don't know if you can see the little set of blue domed tents, but that's actually our camp that we were camped in for about 11 days while we went looking for snow leopards. And we walked past these petroglyphs every day. It's also home to many Buddhist people, which is probably also a reason why the snow leopards are protected, because the Buddhists don't believe in killing any of them. It's a mix of cultures there, though, so snow leopards do unfortunately get killed amongst their range for reasons I'll explain to you about shortly. The main things that snow leopards eat in the Himalayas are livestock from people, including sort of goats and yaks. And sometimes donkeys. It depends on what they is around, and they're quite opportunistic feeders. So if they see a goat wandering free of a village, they'll probably come trying to attack it. In the wild, they will also eat wild sheep and goats, including ibex and blue sheep, which I'll show you pictures of a bit later. So I'm going to talk to you about what happens with snow leopards when they actually do break into a village and kill sheep. I'd be on a trip where we had heard about a leopard and the leopard had been wandering around a village. And the guide that was with us said, look, there's been one that's been hanging around a village, and he said we should go and try to see that one because it's been seen quite frequently. So we started off down there, and on the way down we got a phone call saying that the leopard had broken into an enclosure and it had killed 6 sheep. And so we literally got onto the accelerator and we sped down to this village to see if we could still see the leopard, because sometimes when the leopard sees all these people after it's killed something, they just disappear. And so we were frightened we would miss seeing this leopard, so we went down there, and this was the scene that confronted us. The leopard had actually killed 6 animals in an enclosure, and what was really interesting about this was the fact that the leopard had gone right into the middle of the village to get these sheep. We thought that they would choose an enclosure on the outside of the village, but it actually had gone right down through the village and caught these sheep. And unfortunately, when we got there, we came across a very frightened snow leopard that had just had breakfast. So it was sitting in the corner of the enclosure, not quite knowing what exactly to do, and it was terrified. So we were just sort of sitting there, and there was about 80 Ladakhi people from the village, all like shrouded around or crowded around the enclosure, because they themselves hardly ever see snow leopards. So it's a big thing for them to see snow leopards. So they wanted to come and see the animal that had killed the sheep. As soon as everyone turned up, the snow leopard panicked and it went in to hide. So it found a little dark corner in the side of the enclosure and it just sat there. So that's all we could see of him for about half an hour. So, as this was all going on, you can see all the lucky people here. They had instructions from, we're going to come and collect the leopard from you. Can you please enclose the sheep enclosure so you can stop it escaping? So this is the local people putting wire over the top to stop the leopard from getting out. And in the meantime, while this was going on, this man in the green here, he was the owner of the sheep, and he was saying, he was an older man who was a doctor in the village, and he was saying, I want the cat dead. In past times with snow leopards, whenever they stopped to kill sheep, the people, I mean, one sheep for these people means a lot. So when 6 of them die, it means a lot of money has been destroyed by a snow leopard. So the older people of Ladakh, up until about only 10 years ago, actually, would say, oh, we want to kill the snow leopard. It's killed all of our sheep. We've lost several $100s worth of sheep, and that's a lot of money for these people. I mean, this is not a rich area, so it's an issue with them losing so much money and support for a family, really. And so this is the old man of the village going, I want to kill the snow leopard, and so forth. And we actually found it was quite interesting when this was going on, because in the time that we've been working in Ladakh with snow leopards, we started to see change in the people there, and the young people in particular, kids like you guys actually, who say, no, we don't want the leopard to be killed. That cat is the emblem of our mountains. We want our cat back. Don't kill the cat. And it's really fantastic to see this, because it's the young people like you guys who are changing the way Ladakhi people actually engage with snow leopards on a very personal level. So what happened when the rangers arrived? They actually opened up the wire meshing and tried to get the cat out. Of course, as soon as they did this, the cat bolted out of the enclosure. So as soon as it saw a hole, it just went. And it went bolting down into a nearby field, and all of these Leducky people ran straight after it, and so forth. This is one of the Leducky children. Again, probably that was her first snow leopard she'd ever seen in the wild. And when the people actually had bolted down after the snow leopard, they kind of cornered it in an animal enclosure down there. And this is the animal being basically cornered by the people. They didn't quite know what to do. The rangers were just about to arrive with a net when this animal was in this position. It actually finally went down into a ditch, and so you can sort of see in the background of this image, the net was over the back of it. And they didn't actually hurt the animal in any way. They just caught it in a net and took it away. We found out in the end that the animal went back to Leh, the capital of Ladakh, and had a check. And it actually was fitted with a tracker, and also had 3 prosthetic teeth fit to it. So before it was let back in the wild, and again the kids of the village turned around and said, "We want our cat back. You can't take our cat." And so they did a wonderful thing, and they brought the cat back and released it near the village where it had the sheep killed. So this is after that had happened, that was sort of like the start, pretty sort of excited about this, you know, having seen this amazing close encounter with a snow leopard that had been caught by rangers and so forth. But when you see a leopard in captivity, it's a bit like seeing one in a zoo. So you sort of like go, well, it would still be nice to go and find one in the wild. So we decided we'd take off into the mountains nearby the village there. And we went walking very high up in the mountains, looking up into the hills all the time. There's 3 of my group there, looking up for snow leopards everywhere. This is one of our guides, also walking around looking for snow leopards. It can sort of give you the idea of the sort of countryside we were working in. It's very, very steep, very icy sort of terrain, very, very cold. We didn't actually see snow leopards in this area, actually, so we moved on. But we were under the hands of a very, very good guide. This guy is called Jigmet Dadul. He is the chief snow leopard tracker of the Indian Snow Leopard Conservancy Trust. And so he is an expert at finding snow leopards. He knows how to sense how fresh their tracks are, where they've left scent marks. He knows exactly where they've been and when they, you know, well, he doesn't quite know when they're likely to turn up, but he knows how close they've been seen recently. So there's another one of our guides, Norbu, who is another very good tracker at the moment. Right as I talk to you guys, we've got a group of people looking at snow leopards at the moment, and they're actually in this man's village. And thankfully, they've seen a mother with 2 cubs, which is also a very unusual sighting. Another one of our spotters down in a frozen river, also looking for snow leopards. This time we'd moved to another valley. This area was even more rugged and harsh than the area where the cat was captured, partly because we had to cross Icy River to actually get there. And it was there that we camped for about 10 days. And in phenomenally bad conditions. In fact, we were so cold at night time. I started off thinking I would put my pajamas on when I went to bed, and I did that for 2 nights and so forth. And in the end, it just got too cold and so cold I couldn't even get my pajamas off. So I ended up sleeping for the rest of the time in my field clothes because it was just too hard and too difficult to change. So in that valley, Jigmet was still helping us to find snow leopards up there. And this is him pointing out a scent mark, which is basically a place where the cats go to the toilet. So he can actually tell by looking at that how recently a cat passed that way. So that was really something. But most of our days ended up with this sort of stuff. This was the most we'd seen of snow leopard, was just their paw marks in the snow. Occasionally we'd hear them at night time. But mostly we would see their paw marks and just think, oh, there was a cat here, and yet another day without a cat. We did also find other places where there were like animal carcasses where we knew that snow leopards had been hunting. So this is an ibex skull, and this is actually in one of the valleys that we were working in. And so you could see where they've hunted, and you knew they were there. Again, we didn't see them, so it was really quite hard. This is another thing that we were looking for. This is a scrape mark. So again, another toilet stop for a snow leopard. And we're also looking at for these so we could see when a snow leopard had been there. We saw lots of them too. No snow leopards. This is another snow leopard kill. So this was an Urial, unfortunately, who had died at a snow leopard, and it was only a recent kill because you can sort of see the snow has fallen on the carcass of that animal. Again, we waited around to see if the snow leopard would come back and finish off its lunch, but it never did, so we just sort of sat there, again, looking for snow leopards and not seeing them. They are very hard to see. So yeah, it was getting a bit frustrating for all of us because we were all a bit cold and we're getting very tired because we've been up at sunrise every day and sunset, and we had some minor things to distract us like these, which are Siberian ibex. It's one of the sheep species that lives in the Himalayas in that area, and also blue sheep, which is another ungulate species that lives in the mountains, another goat sort of sheep species. And so both of these animals are actually prey species in the wild for wild snow leopards. So we started seeing lots of prey and we thought, oh good, maybe we'll find a snow leopard who's going to attack one of them and have dinner. We didn't find one of those until quite some time later. We also came across these little guys. These are Royal Pikers, and they're lovely little sort of seed-eating mice of the Himalayas. They look a bit like a gerbil, actually. And they dart around the rocks as well too. Snow leopard will sometimes try to eat one of these. It's not common though because it's not a very big meal for it. This is also Tibetan woolly hare. Again, can be snow leopard prey, but mostly they will go for bigger things. But we did see these while we were looking for them, which was nice. And also partridges and so forth, like these guys. They were lovely to see while we were waiting, but days would pass and we wouldn't find anything, and it was getting quite frustrating, as you could imagine. So another sun would go down and we would sit and wait and look and hope to hear and see. We transferred from place to place, looking from in different valleys and different mountains. These are our cars that we travelled to and from places in, until we ended up in this camp, which is the camp of the petroglyphs that I described to you before earlier. So right at the bottom there's our camp. That's actually our little line of tents in the back, and our food tent at the bottom. That was our home for the main snow leopard part of our trip. Each day from that camp we would walk very high into the mountains trying to find them again, and some days we had snowstorms. So this is one of our group actually getting stuck in a snowstorm on a frozen river. It was a bit of a hard day that day actually. And that was me sort of photographing some of the people ahead of me coming out in the snowstorm as we started to lose visibility. We did get back to the camp okay that day, but I think if we'd left it a bit too long, we would have struggled to find our way back to camp. The snow got very heavy that night. We did actually find a leopard in this valley, and we found a dead one. And unfortunately, it sort of happened on a sunny day when this light snow had melted. Jigmet said, oh my God, there's a snow leopard up on the hill. And I was like, where? And next minute he pointed out this sort of dead snow leopard who had actually probably died of natural causes, we worked in the end. Snow leopards, when they hunt, they have to jump from very big heights to catch things. And sometimes they get it wrong. And this was unfortunately a female who actually did get it wrong. And we think she died simply because she fell while she was trying to hunt. Snow leopard hunts are not always successful. In fact, 9 out of 10 times they're unsuccessful, and so forth. So they take a very big risk when they jump to try and catch something. And this one took that risk, and unfortunately it didn't pay very well for her and she died. So this is Jigmet inspecting this female snow leopard, and it was very sad to see this because we thought, oh, our first wild snow leopard and it's a dead one. But on the other hand, it gave us an opportunity to have a really good look at snow leopards and look at their paws and their tails and so forth. So to give you an idea of how hard it is to find a snow leopard, this is the sort of scene we would walk past all the time. And there's a snow leopard actually hiding in here. And so forth. It's actually sort of like sitting there watching the sheep at the bottom, hoping to have dinner. Now, I'm not sure if any of you can spot it, but if you see the sheep sort of, there's a large lump of rock on one side, and it's slightly to the left of that, and it's sort of next to a red lump, and you'll see this tiny little leopard face, and that's the leopard. And this was a leopard that we'd actually seen earlier that day, and some of our guides had actually seen him coming down a nearby valley and said, oh, there's a leopard coming down the valley. And we thought, oh, great, we'll go and see if we can see it. And on the way up to seeing it, we saw these blue sheep, and so we stopped there. And and waited for the leopard to come down. And we saw these blue sheep, and we thought, oh my God, the blue sheep won't know that the leopard's here because he's so well camouflaged, as you can see. So we just sat there, and we sat for 6.5 hours in the snow. Now, to give you an idea how cold it was, we were in about -10. And what happened, we actually had a bottle of water, which is a 1.5 litre bottle of water, and it was the middle of the day when we first started sitting there. And within about an hour, that water was frozen solid, and it was in broad sunlight. So that's how cold it was. And the hardest thing about snow leopards is actually you've just got to sit there and watch and wait. You can't move around to keep warm. You can't make sudden movements or sudden noises and so forth. The minute you do anything like that, the snow leopard will just hear you or see you, and he'll just run away. And so we had to sit there in this excruciating cold looking for this leopard. And so we watched him come down the valley. He went and had a bit of a sleep and so forth. And he actually went to watch for these blue sheep coming around. This is some of the other leopards that we'd seen, but this is where he was sleeping. So you can, even there, you can sort of see where and how well hidden he was. So he was sitting there looking at us and looking at the blue sheep and wondering if he could have dinner. And this is one of the blue sheep that was coming around the corner towards him that had no idea that the snow leopard was there. Jigmet was watching the sheep to see what they would do, because sometimes the sheep, when they see the leopard, they make an alarm call and they start whistling and kicking their hooves to sort of say that there's danger. We were looking for those signs, and in the end, the sheep just weren't even aware that they were there. So the leopard got a bit tired, so he moved, and this is him sort of moving from place to place. So we were very lucky with him, and so forth. And then finally, when he saw the sheep, he came down to this spot. So from there, he could sit there and look at the sheep. As you can see, the sheep are looking towards us. They're not looking at the snow leopard, so they had no idea that the snow leopard was there. And so he thought this was perfect. So within seconds, he bolted out of this sort of little hiding hole that he had. And this is him coming down the scree slope towards the sheep. And this is my photo of him trying to catch a blue sheep, actually. So he's sort of almost mid-air there, trying to catch the sheep. Now, he's a bit of an old cat, this cat. He had been fighting a lot with a female that he was trying to impress, and she wasn't very impressed. So you can see from one side of his face, he's actually got a bit of a sore eye. That isn't from any injury from the hunt. That's actually from being too keen on a girl. And so, but it didn't stop him from hunting. He certainly didn't fail in this hunt because he had a sore eye. He just simply it didn't work. And unfortunately, he missed his dinner. And the thing with this leopard was because he had this strange sort of injury on his eye, he had this natural sort of disappointed look on his face. It was a bit sad, but he was a lovely old cat, and he sort of had a grizzled, gnarly look of an old master of the mountains. It's very nice. So when he finished his hunt that wasn't successful, he thought, oh, well, obviously this is a good spot for me to go and hang out for more prey. So he started scenting, a bit like your cat does, you know, when it wants to sort of take ownership of something. He started scenting the rocks of the local area. And then, of course, he had a bit of a wash because, you know, when you start to hunt and you're not successful, you get quite dirty. And so he was washing his face, and obviously that injury on his face is making him wash too. But as you can see from this picture, you can see how big his paws are, and I'll tell you the reason why they're so big in a little while. So we were very, very lucky with this encounter with these leopards. To see a wild leopard, snow leopard hunting is something that's only ever been documented once by a photographer before me. There was a South African guy, Adam Riley, who photographed a snow leopard hunt from a bit further away the year before I did. When we actually saw it, I was the first woman in the world to actually photograph a snow leopard hunting, and it was a fantastic experience, to be honest, to have an animal like this just share its life with us for an afternoon. It was just something that at the end of it, when it finished and we'd seen him washing his paws and so forth, I was crying actually, because I just couldn't believe we'd seen this wonderful wild cat just do so much stuff in front of us and not even worry about us being there. But we were very still, so we tried to hide and not disturb him, because if we moved and he missed the hunt because we moved, then we would have stopped him from maybe having dinner, and I would have felt really bad about that. As it turns out, he just wasn't successful anyway, I think because he was a little bit older and a bit slow. But I fell in love with snow leopards on that trip, and it's very difficult to not get attached to them. They're like the biggest, fluffiest, giant kitten you'll ever see in your life. They've got big tails and big paws and bushy fur and so forth. And the problem is with snow leopards, and getting back to the story where people used to kill them after they attacked livestock, is it's not the only thing that threatens them, unfortunately. People love the snow leopard fur, and they do get killed for snow leopard pelt, which is a shame, because people would prefer to see a snow leopard on their lounge room floor rather than in the wild. It's not a very nice thing at all. But what we've been doing across this range with the Indian Snow Leopard Conservancy is actually helping the local people to build livestock enclosures. So this is one of them, and this is a stone, wire and wood enclosure, and this actually is an enclosure for several families to use to put all of their sheep and goats in to protect them from snow leopard kill. So they can go in there at night time, they're completely covered up, and that way the snow leopard, instead of attacking sheep and goats, he will go out and attack wild prey, which is what he should be doing anyway. So this is inside one of the enclosures. They're quite big, actually. They can hold 50, 60 animals in there, so it's actually a really good thing. And the wire that's used on the roof is very, very strong, so the snow leopard can't get in the sides, or it can't get in the front or the back or the top of it either. So here's some snow leopard facts which I'll share with you. They're actually quite a small cat. I think people think that leopards are very big. Snow leopards are probably quite little. Their only body length is about between 4 and 5 feet. Interestingly, their tail is nearly as long as their body, and so there's a few things that that people think about that tail. Really, scientifically, it's been classified just as a counterweight. So when the leopard bounds from rock to rock to try and hunt something, it obviously needs something to help it keep its balance, and the tail does the best job of that, and that's the reason why it has such a long tail. Some people say that it also curls itself up around its tail so that it can keep itself warm at night time, because the tails are really bushy and furry. That may happen, but it's more likely that it's a counterbalance. They live to approximately 20 years old in captivity and only to 15 to 18 years in the wild. And the difference between this is because in captivity they don't take the risks that they have to take in the wild to get food. So they don't tend to have to live in such harsh terrain, obviously, if they're in a zoo. In 15 to 18 years in the wild, that's a good run for a snow leopard. They do live in really, really hard country. So their fur is about 2 inches long on their back and 4 inches long on their bellies and so forth. So there's the lovely, lovely belly fur which keeps them warm in the winter. As I said to you before, they eat some wild sheep, goat, deer, pigs, small mammals and some birds, and they even have their own snowshoes. So one of the things about the big paws of snow leopards is because they have such big paws, they don't sink into the snow as much as other cats would do. So that's one of the reasons why they have these huge paws, so they can specifically adapt to being in the snow in high altitude. They can jump up to about 30 feet, and that's really fascinating in itself, because we saw the cat bound out of the hole. It jumped about 3 feet when we saw it, but they are capable of jumping about 30 feet from rock face to rock face to try and catch something. Again, the higher the height, the bigger the risk for the cat. So if it jumps and it misses, then that's a huge risk for that animal. They also don't roar. Snow leopards have a really, really weird call. In fact, often most people who actually go to look for them hear them before they see them. Sometimes in the middle of the night you'll hear this. I'll try to, don't laugh, but I'll try to actually imitate what it is. It's like, and it's that sort of noise that you hear at night, and you think, is that them? Doesn't sound like, you think that they might sound like a lion or a big cat roaring, you know, big roar, but they're not like that at all. They're quite sort of quiet, but their calls do echo across the valleys and so forth, and they principally use their calls to find a mate. So they live at really high altitudes. They're usually between 10,000 feet and 18,000 feet, with a minimum of about 14,000 feet as average, and we were generally operating in between 14 and 15,000 feet to look for them. So then their tails are nearly as long as they are. So the main threats to snow leopards and why they're so precious is the conflict between humans and livestock, which I showed you, and snow leopards. Poaching for fur, which is a big threat to them too. Their fur fetches very big money on international sort of black markets. And the area where they live is troubled, so conservation is hard. In Ladakh, it's actually wonderful because the area hasn't really got too many problems politically or military-wise. It's very close to the border of Pakistan, but where the snow leopards live there, the villages, they don't have any conflict between each other. But unfortunately, snow leopards also live in other places like Pakistan and Afghanistan and Kyrgyzstan and places like that too, where there's lots and lots of political problems. So if anyone wants to go and study them, then it's often quite dangerous for that person to go and study them. So when we say that what we know about snow leopards now, we know this from scientific data and taking information from that, but really we don't know. There's a lot we don't know about snow leopards simply because we can't study them that easily in some of the places that they live. So to give you an idea of what it's like to go and find a snow leopard, very few people ever see a wild snow leopard. It's actually, there'd be less people in the world that have ever seen snow leopards than there actually have been in some of the villages that we've gone to. It's a really, only a handful of people ever get to see them each year. They're so elusive and so difficult to see that it's, some people can search for years for them, or even their whole lives. When we were there, we had a client with us who had looked for them for 40 days in the Hunza in northern Pakistan, and he never found one. He heard one, but never found one. It was my second trip up there to try and find them, and my partner's third. So we camped out in the mountains for 17 days in tents. During that time, we had no showers. We had to use a pit toilet, which was not very glamorous. And the best encounters we had were in the high altitude area of 14,000 feet. So in Fahrenheit, our nighttime temperatures that we were camping in were -13 Fahrenheit, and day temperatures were around about 23 Fahrenheit. And as I said to you before, the hardest part is just sitting and watching and looking for them in their landscape. They really do live up to their nickname, which is the ghost of the mountains, because most people go, I've never seen one. I've lived here my whole life and I've never seen one. So that's what I look like after I've had 17 days without a shower. It's not very glamorous at all, actually. But to be honest, when you look for snow leopards, often the hardest effort means the greatest rewards. And we were very lucky in that we actually persevered long enough and stayed out in the mountains long enough to have the encounters that we did on that trip. So yeah, as you can see, I'm looking a bit grotty by that point. It's a bit embarrassing. But yeah, it was a fantastic journey, and we were very lucky to see the cats that we saw. And I actually am a bit envious of the people who are there right now, because they're now in the valley where I saw that old cat and the old cat hunting. And I think I would love to see that old cat again. It would be like saying hello to an old friend. So yeah, instead I'm here talking to you guys about it, and I'm also working in the background with the Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust, helping to promote their work that they're doing, and with the formation of their new website and writing stories about what they do. So that was my trip with the snow leopards. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have about being up there, if you'd like.
All right, Inger, that's amazing. What a story, and I think it's a good lesson for students how persistence can pay off, for sure.
You need to be very persistent up there, unfortunately. So yeah, it's.
Well, let me introduce our classroom. So we have Mrs. DeWorth's grade 8s from Taylorville Junior High. They're joining us today from Illinois. Mrs. Edgar's grade 4s are joining us from Hutchinson, Kansas. And then we have Mr. Resgin's group. They're joining actually just down the road from me in Ancaster, Ontario. They're grade 7B. And Mrs. Stouffer's group was joining us from Florida, but their internet just wasn't working today. So a shout out to Mrs. Stouffer, Mrs. Todd's grade 2s. Hopefully they get to watch the clip later. Let's visit our grade 4s first. And if you guys have some questions for Inger, fire away.
Hi there.
Hi. Has Snow Leopard seen you when you were taking a photo?
Did they see me when I was taking the photos?
Yeah.
It's a good question, actually. I do think the cat might have been aware that we were there. He sort of looked in our direction sometimes, and so forth. But I think when he came out of his hiding hole and he sat in that little sort of spot where you couldn't hardly see him, I think his main priority was like, oh, yes, there might be photographers over there, but oh, there's blue sheep here that don't even know that I'm here, and he sort of thought dinner first over me. Thankfully. Yeah, so we just let him hunt and let him try to have some dinner. So
Thank you.
How fast can a snow leopard run?
oh, that's a very good question. I think if they really want to run very fast, they're capable of running. I'm going to guess here, so I think it's probably maybe about 10 to 15 miles an hour. I think that would be about the speed that they run. But they would only do it in very short bursts. These are animals that don't run big distances from mountain to mountain. They more tend to sort of lope or wander. And during the winter season, which is the best time to see them when we were there, they were on the move a bit because they go from valley to valley looking for females, and they come down out of their very, very high area in order to walk down there. But we mostly saw them walking. We only saw them run once, and that was when they were actually looking for food. So they try to store up their energy and not use it too much by running big distances, I think. They need to hunt and they need to eat.
All right, and we'll give you a chance if you have maybe one more.
There you go.
Sure. Oh, yeah, you go. Hi.
How did you start photography?
Oh my goodness. I started photography when I was actually a teenager. I've always loved photography. And when I was younger, I was sort of I had the opportunity to do a lot of travel, and I used to write stories and take photographs as a hobby. And I started doing it professionally when I was 30, after I did a course in photojournalism in Australia. And I started working as a volunteer on an albatross research project in Australia. And so I was actually taking photos for them and writing stories about conservation for them too. And now the work with albatrosses went to work with all sorts of other animals, including brush-tailed rock wallabies and corroboree frogs and parrots. And I've worked with lots of wonderful animals, including humpback whales and sperm whales, and I've even been lucky enough to work with polar bears, and so I've just gone from sort of creature to creature. I think the snow leopard is a particularly special thing, and I chose it for you guys because it's probably one of the hardest animals in the wild to ever photograph. But I love my job. I wouldn't do anything else. It has taken me to some wonderful parts of the world, and hopefully my photographs are a lasting legacy of what some of these remote places are like and what the animals are like that live in them. But yes, I can definitely recommend it, especially for girls, because girls have a very nice way of presenting things, I think, that are not quite the same as guys. So if you want to get into it, go for it.
All right, well, great questions. Let's visit our class in Ancaster, the grade 7B, and we'll give you a chance to ask Inger some questions.
Out of all the animals you could have picked, why did you choose snow leopards?
I actually read a book called The Snow Leopard by a guy called Peter Mathieson, and Peter did a very strenuous trip looking for them in western Nepal, and I've always loved the Himalaya. I fell in love with the Himalaya when I first went there when I was 24. I loved the people and the mountains and the animals that live there. And when I read The Snow Leopard, I just thought, oh my God, how amazing is that? I mean, that someone could spend so much time looking for an animal and never see it, and so forth. And so I really had this thing in my dreams that I would love to see a wild snow leopard. And so, yeah, I got the opportunity to go with my partner, and I was very, very blessed. He'd been there before and knew it quite well, but hadn't really had good sightings of them. And so we were very excited to be going back, and even more thrilled, of course, when we got back and saw that. But it's a general love of the Himalaya, I think, that sent me up there in the first place. Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
What do you want us to take away from this learning experience?
I hope that one day when you guys are, grow up and you graduate, that you actually go to somewhere like Ladakh and have a look at the way that people live there. Ladakh is a very special place, and the people are wonderful. It's actually, they're so friendly and so kind and so forth. And I think a lot of people, they hear stories about places like Ladakh because it's so close to Pakistan, and they go, oh, it's so dangerous, and I could never go there, and it's too frightening and so forth. And it's not like that at all. In fact, if anything, Ladakh, the only thing that's going to kill you up there is kindness from people, I think. You'll be asked into tea all the time. You'll have to try and get out of having yak butter tea. And it really is it's a lovely place. So I hope I can encourage you to actually go one day and try and find a snow leopard yourself, because the search for them is such a special thing, and it takes place in a beautiful part of the world filled with just very, very heartwarming and welcoming people who might let you sleep in their houses with them like we've done, or let you put your tent up in their garden like we did. And so, yes, it's a lovely place. So I hope you go.
All right, and one more.
Okay, next person.
How many snow leopards are left, and who inspired you to research them?
Okay, there's it's not really quite sure exactly how many are left in the wild, but there's estimates that sort of say between 4,500 and 7,000, which for a wild, it sounds like a lot, but which for a wild animal is actually really not very many. So in Ladakh, it's a bit easier to see them because there's a lot more prey for them there, and the valleys are very steep and very narrow and so forth. So the snow leopards don't tend to hold down such a big territory. If you try to go looking for them in Mongolia, like a girlfriend of mine has done, to go researching for them there, she's actually spent like 3 weeks in the field and never even seen a sign of a snow leopard. So she knows how really frustrating it is. Ladakh is probably one of the best places to see them. I think one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it is the conservation project that surrounds the snow leopards in Ladakh is really comprehensive, and it allows for people to live alongside these wild animals without hurting them or without having their livestock hurt. So the animal protection for the shelter that we've sponsored up there, that's just one part of it. The other parts are going to schools like I'm doing now and talking to kids about snow leopards and so forth, and encouraging them to actually understand more about the way snow leopards move and what they do. It also is a situation to sort of like try and help build the tourism around snow leopards, so people can actually go and look for snow leopards and stay in people's homes. It's very interesting. The kids of Ladakh call snow leopards shan. And so when you turn up in the villages, it's quite unusual because they don't see a lot of white people there, and they sort of go, oh, what are you doing here? And you say, oh, you're looking for Shan, and they go, oh, Shan. And they're all keen to try and tell you where they've seen one, or they've heard about one being seen, or where their sheep had been killed and stuff. So they're getting more enthusiastic about this, and they're learning more to protect them. And I think that's the real thing that I find really, really inspiring, is the young people there who have changed so much in the short time that I've been going there, from wishing to hurt them or not really caring about them to now really caring about what happens to the cats that they live alongside. It's fantastic. It's a good project.
Okay, thank you for those questions. We'll move on to our third group joining us from Taylorville. Your microphone's on.
All right, we got a couple of questions.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Okay, so you talked about the snow leopard and how he kind of invaded the sheep enclosure. Why didn't he attack the people?
Why doesn't he attack people? It's basically he's quite a small cat, and he's the chief predator of that area and so forth. But there's never been a recorded case of a snow leopard attacking a human, and that's a good thing, because I think if they attacked humans, then even more humans would try to kill them because they think, oh, it's a man-eating cat, and it's actually not a man-eating cat. It's a bit too small, actually. So, and it won't probably take the risk and so forth. It can attack a sheep and so forth because a sheep is just a bit smaller than it. But if it sees a human, mostly again because they've been persecuted and people have gone, oh, sorry, have I finished? Yeah, they basically run away when they see humans more often. So that's a good thing rather than attack them. We're finished class. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, our classes are transitioning, so sorry about that.
No worries. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to my talk. Thank you.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Sure.
What made you decide in this career? What made you choose a career to go do the things you do?
I'm sorry? I missed it.
What made you decide to choose this particular career, this particular field, photography?
I think I was blessed with parents who actually brought us up to be very independent, and they always assumed that we could do things unless proven otherwise. They never assumed that we couldn't do things and that they had to teach me stuff. They actually sort of said, look, don't have any fear. People are not to be feared. The world isn't to be feared. And so I started traveling, and I love travel. I think travel is actually one of the things that drives my entire life, meeting different people. I've just come back from a couple of weeks' work in Senegal in West Africa, and where we were working in some areas there that were very important for birds. And I met some incredible people there, like from Fulani nomads who live in the whole of the Sahel, and to our local guides who were multilingual guides who were very passionate about the birds that they were showing us. And from every place I go, I meet the most incredible people, I guess. And to me, it just feeds me and keeps me wanting to see more and do more and understand and work out how things are in different places. And it's actually the world. To me, the world isn't the big dangerous place that the media and the internet portrays it to be. It's actually a really, really wonderful world, and we live in this world of people perpetuating fascinating cultures and doing incredible things. And I'm lucky enough that I get to see them, and I'm even more lucky that I get to share them with people via things like Explore by the Seat of Your Pants, I guess. So yeah, it's a blessing. So, and it's more or less an addiction, I think. I can't stop. I hope to be doing this until I die, actually, until I'm physically unable to do it anymore. And but I'm hoping to be one of these crazy women who's still climbing Kilimanjaro at the age of 80. I've got a few years to go yet.
Well, Inger, thank you so much. I mean, your pictures are amazing. The story that you told that went with them, from the snow leopard itself to the conservation issues behind it, were just amazing. And where can students go if they want to check out some more of your work?
They can go to my website if you like, and there's a new website coming for the Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust coming at the moment. Where else is, if you want to see the full set of my snow leopard images, a South African group called Earth Touch, they published a story on my trip, which wasn't in as much detail as I've told you here, and they actually published many of my images from that trip on that story. So that's online as well too. So Earth Touch, and if you Google Earth Touch and Inger Vandyke, then you'll see all my photos on there. So yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna give the classes a chance to say goodbye and thank you. I'm really looking forward to having another hangout in the future where we can dive into some more of your work, because it sounds like you get to visit some pretty cool spots.
Thank you.
But for now, I'll turn the mics on. The classrooms can say goodbye. So we'll fire them up.
Bye, guys. Very nice to talk to you. Bye. Good luck. Get out there and see snow leopards. It's fantastic.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for a great hangout, and we're signing off for today.
Okay.